good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to the first session of the year 2026. I hope you had a great holiday season, great New Year's Eve, and all of that. And I hope that the year 2026 will be good for us all, because that is what we want, isn't it? So let's start with why inspiring conversation are. And let me remind you, you can find inspiring conversations on YouTube, Spotify, LinkedIn, and Facebook. But the reason we are here, and boy, oh boy, this message can't be more important now, because the times are really weird in the world. So it's all about creating conversations that really matter. We are diving into ways to connect deeply, break down barriers, and build moments that inspire trust and growth, whether it is with your team, at work, or in your everyday chats. We will bring more positivity, realness, and impact into every conversation. And just, we have to live a little, and we have to think about other stuff than the world politics. So my stream, I'm sitting in Iceland, in Kópavogur, and you can see my beautiful town, my part of the town over there. I live by the ocean. But now, my guest today has written several books about dyslexia. And he is, as I understand, this is just one of many. So we have to talk to him about that. And this one he wrote with Professor James Holmes. We will get into that later. But I really want to welcome Mr. Russell Van Bronckhorst. Russell
Van Brocklen.
Van Brocklen.
Yes, well, it's like Kaczynski. It's a really hard name to pronounce.
Well, you must be a Dutch ascendant or something. Van
Yes.
Brocklen.
Yes.
So, welcome and Happy New Year.
Oh, thanks for having me. Happy New Year as well.
And you have a hat on. Is that so your minds stay inside, or your thoughts stay inside?
It's just when I was looking at when I started doing podcasts, and last year I did 157 of them. I was looking for how I could stand out a little bit, and I teach dyslexics primarily using history. So I just kind of looked at it as I'm kind of like a reporter, and this just kind of fell in from traditional America, 50s, about 70 years ago. So I just said, I think that would work as a shtick. So that's why I just decided to wear it.
I go for my hair, because I have this voluptuous curly hair. Just before we start, I want to mention that people can participate in the conversation. You can comment if you're watching this via LinkedIn or YouTube or whatnot. So just if you have any questions for Russell and me, then go for it. But Russell, I don't know, I am self-proclaimed Iceland's Chief Happiness Officer.
Mm-hmm.
So are you self-proclaimed Dyslexia Professor, or have you researched or studied dyslexia since because I understand that you are dyslexic. So this
Right.
is, so the segue is why, so when you have to, okay, he just went away, but you have
Hello?
to, I hope you can hear me. I was just
Yes.
going to ask about why is it that you, if you are dyslexic, then I understand it, but why did you go in full throttle?
Well, that's a very interesting
everything?
story that I think you'll find interesting. Number one, I am extremely dyslexic. So what happened is it was the late 90s. I was finishing up college and I wanted to know how laws were created, not some course I wanted to know. So I signed up for the New York State Assembly internship program and I showed up and I said, here's my neuropsychological evaluation. I have a first grade reading and writing level. And the director kind of freaked out because he said this isn't going to work because typically you have the assembly member, the chief of staff, who
Yeah.
probably was an intern a year or two before, and the intern, and that's it. So the director went to the speaker's office, and the speaker said, we've accepted this kid. You're going to accommodate him. You're going to make this work. You're not sending him away because he's dyslexic. So they got a committee together and they did they came up with a pretty interesting solution. They pulled me out of the legislative office building because a big part of the internship is your camaraderie with your peers. They shipped me off to the Capitol where they put me in the Majority Leaders Program and Council's office. They had no clue what to do with an undergrad. They knew what to do with graduate students. They ran the assembly day to day. So I had a phenomenal internship. Why they did that is they put me there because there are 3 administrative assistants who could help with my horrendous writing. So then for the academic portion, instead of the typical 20, 30-page research paper, I did a multi-hour presentation and multi-hour Q&A session, a very standard accommodation for me back then. They put all that together and recommended 15 credits of A minus. That went back to the New York State's flagship public university, the State University of New York Center at Buffalo, and their political science department. And they looked at the accommodations that they gave me. And they don't have to accept the recommendation, they normally do. But because they didn't like the accommodation, they lowered my grade from an A minus. Guess how much they lowered it to?
I hope they only did it to an A.
Nope, they flunked me. 15
What?
credits of F. Yep. The New York State political science department at the flagship public university didn't like the accommodations, the New York State government itself. So they flunked me for it.
Well, okay. So this is ridiculous. Wait a minute. Like, okay, if I imagine that before, like in elementary school, you probably went through bad times.
Oh, it was heck, but the main thing is the person that gave me the neuropsych evaluation was a New York State SUNY distinguished professor in psychology, their highest rank, one of the top professors in psychology on the planet. All right. They based their accommodations on that report. The speaker of our lower house of our parliament set this up. Okay. And then the flagship public university's political science department didn't like those accommodations. So instead of the recommended A minus, they flunked me and gave me 15 credits of F.
Yeah, but what? Like, if you, so let me get.
Don't ask me to try to explain what happened. It
No, no,
happened. So,
but I'm just trying to get into your head about, like, if when you were in elementary school, that is one
mhm.
thing because you are judged by the other kids and fellow students, and you are dumb and you are whatnot because, like, that is what happens, isn't it? That is what the kids
Yeah,
today they
yeah,
are fighting with. And then when
it
you're
was.
grown up and you have the certificate of, like, I have this evaluation, and then they just say, no, you can get the
Well,
effort
the
out.
assembly itself made massive accommodations. Okay. The
Yeah.
accommodations were so extraordinarily extreme that the political science department at SUNY Center of Buffalo didn't like them, so they flunked me because of it.
And what did you do to try to get that?
Oh, what I did was pretty severe. I went to the professors I still liked, and I said, "How do I force myself to learn to read and write in grad school? Where do I go?" They said, "Well, if you like political science and you need to learn to read and write, you go to law school." So I went to law school.
And should you learn to read and write in law school?
Well, law school is the most intense reading and writing in American higher education. So what they do is they give you these incredibly dense cases to read. And then they use a thing called a Socratic method, which is designed to embarrass you. They ask you questions that virtually no beginning law student can answer. They keep asking you anyway to embarrass you until you adapt. It's brutal. And that happened to me in my second day of contracts. Professor Warner, a dyslexic professor, called on me. But unlike everybody else, I did not respond as a flubbering student. I responded as his equal. So here's what's going on. This is Dyslexia. This is the best book on dyslexia. It's called Overcoming Dyslexia, second edition from Yale by Dr. Sally Shaywitz. That's dyslexia. Do you see how the
Yeah,
back part of your brain has this
yeah,
massive neuroactivity and mine
yeah,
has none?
yeah,
But you see how the front part of my brain's about 2.5 times more active than yours?
yes.
So essentially, that deals with word analysis followed by articulation. That triggered, for the first time in my life, everything organized, everything, I could see everything. I responded as Professor Warner's equal. He tried arguing with me. I argued back. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. He had to say, Russell, in the interest of time, I have to move on to the next case. You couldn't be any more correct. I learned how to think like a lawyer in that interaction. I learned to read within a month. I learned to write within a couple of years. Then I went back to the New York State Senate and I said, I want you to fund my dyslexia research project, which they don't do. So after several years of working with the New York State Education Department, working with various the Research Foundation, the top SUNY professors out in Western New York. What I did is I decided I wanted to solve problems for people like me. These were highly motivated, highly intelligent American juniors and seniors, think 16 to 18, reading and writing like they were 12 or 13. Okay. So I decided to bring their writing skills up to the entering graduate level to give them the writing skills of college graduates before they entered college so they would be okay. So I chose the graduate records exam, analytical writing assessment. Finally, the New York State Senate, after years of looking into it, funded the study for multiple years. It was in the Averill Park Central School District right outside of Albany, New York. We took their best, most motivated 16 to 18-year-olds. They had middle school or 12 to 13-year-old reading and writing skills, one class period a day for the school year, and they increased from generally the 0 percentile on the GRE writing assessment test to the average range of entering graduate students, the 30th to 70th percentile. They all went on to college. They all graduated. Grade point averages of 2.5 to 3.6, cost New York State government less than $900, which was 2 to 3 times more effective than the best private sector program for less than 1% of the cost. And that's how I got started.
So, because of the picture you showed, so
Mhm.
and you were equal to because you could somehow read the professor or
Oh,
get
no, no,
into.
I wasn't reading the professor. What happened is the front part of my brain kicked in. Remember, I have
Yeah,
two
yeah,
and a half times the neural activity. It's
yeah,
word analysis followed by articulation. I could just see the policy conflict, which in law is the individual versus the state, and many policy conflicts below. And I just processed all of that information in a fraction of a second. So I knew exactly where he was going multiple steps ahead of time. He knew where I was going. As I said, I responded as his equal. He never
yeah.
heard about this before. He never experienced it before. But after that, anytime he called on me, I argued as his equal. Drove the professors crazy. It was fun.
Yeah, of course. But tell me, because you say that like if you lose your sight, then your ears, like your hearing gets better. Have you ever gone to, because if you are dyslexic and you use like there is this
Mhm.
difference in our brains. Have you ever been evaluated? Like, have you gone for an IQ test? Like, are you?
Oh, the New York State government insisted upon this before to start the process. So, what the education department said was, we want a SUNY distinguished professor in psychology, State University of New York distinguished professor in psychology. And in Western New York, there were only two. It just so happened that Dr. Holichka gave me that original evaluation. She said yes. It was 20 hours of her evaluating me over 3 days, beating the heck out of me. She wrote what happened. I could go from the first grade level to that of a 6-year-old to writing above average of 22-year-olds who are college graduates, and then back down again. And what she said at over 5 pages is my brain shifted from a part that worked to a part that didn't. I mean, from a part that didn't work to a part that worked. All right. And with that, and then we essentially transferred those skills over to other dyslexics in a public school, taught by a public school teacher for less than $900 a student.
This is unbelievable, because this is just amazing. But
Oh, that's what I did 20 years ago. What we're doing now is a lot more fun.
yeah, I know that. But like, you must have felt like a victor, like a victory or somewhere, that
Oh,
you were
I
not.
thought I was. And then I went down and I presented this at the New York City branch of the International Dyslexia Association. I was on cloud nine before I entered. I thought I accomplished something amazing. I thought I was done. I was so wrong.
Oh,
I, I got two reactions. I
okay.
got the professors. I said, some of my dyslexic high school kids scored in the 70th percentile of entering grad students. They said, that's nice. We don't care. We want the craft of research. It's like, the craft of what? The craft of research. It's a book that came out in 1995 from the University of Chicago because their PhD students didn't know how to do their doctoral dissertations. It has since sold over 1 million copies. They want kids before they come to high school to know how to do the craft of research, which is context, problem statement, context, get everybody on the same page, a problem statement, come up with something original. I was like, you want me to show school kids to do PhD level work? They said yes. I was like, okay. Then I went to the teachers and they said, okay, you solved this for the superstar kids, the highly motivated, highly intelligent. They're very rare. They said, does this work for normal kids? And I said, no. And they said, well, come back when you've figured that out. And that took me to begin that process, took at least 8 years. All right. So I've been training New York City public school teachers for the past 11 years. The problem is when we shifted over to normal kids, because remember, I had to do two of these at the same time. I had to teach them PhD level stuff, and I had to
Yeah.
teach them how to do this for normal kids. What I found is the biggest problem we started off with is these elementary school kids, think 5 years old to 10 years old. We're
Yeah.
writing a bunch of randomly placed misspelled words, and nobody knew how to fix it. All right, without some $50,000 a year private school for years. So, do you know any dyslexic kids, 5 to 10, at any point in your life?
Yes.
Okay. I need you to change their name so we protect their identity. What's the made up name, and how old was the kid at the time?
No, well, I have mainly worked with teenagers, and maybe they were like, when they were writing, and they always say, "Well, I'm dyslexic," and I said, That's no excuse. Like, you have other people around you that you can ask questions." So just let's say Anna,
Well, okay,
14.
well, let me explain what's going on.
Yeah.
This is where writing's supposed to happen. You got all this neural activity. They got nothing. So what we have to
Okay.
do is bring the reading and writing from back here where nothing's going on, and we have to bring it up here where we have 2.5 times the neural activity. Okay.
Oh my. Yes.
So it's like when you're asking somebody with dyslexic, you can't write, It's like asking, typically, until we move it forward, it's like asking a kid in a wheelchair to get up and run. It's not happening. The part of the brain that deals with it is essentially, there's just nothing there.
But how is your, like, if you are mainly in the state of New York or
Hmm.
whatever it's called, like, but
Yeah.
how about other places in the US? Like, what is the common ground when teaching kids with dyslexia?
Oh, it's beyond stupid. What we have here, if you contact this school, I mean,
Yeah,
the Yale's. Remember, this is Yale.
yeah,
Okay, it's
yeah,
one of the top schools on the planet. If you contact them about dyslexia, you say it's kindergarten. All right. How do we test for dyslexia? They say it's 25, $50 a kid or whatever it is. The teacher can do it. Once you find out what the kid who's dyslexic, here are programs for kindergarten through third grade for teaching reading that are federally funded, $1 million a piece. Choose what you want. They're scientifically valid. If you do that by the end of third grade, 8 years old, we're giving a reading test in every state in the United States. If you pass that test, statistics show you're going to be okay, even if it's with a 65. If you fail it, it's a 911 emergency. That's the emergency number in the United States
yeah,
because uh, 5 through 8 we learn to read. 9 and above we read to learn.
yeah.
So then the solution is after that, it's called an Orton-Gillingham multi-structured language approach. Hasn't changed much since the 1950s. And to give you an example, the Windward School in New York City, Upper East Side of Manhattan, will take a kid in from their school, work with them for 4 to 5 years, and then send them back, and they'll be as educated as the best private schools anywhere on the planet. At 75,000 a year for 4 to 5 years just in tuition. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, yes,
Yes.
continue.
So yeah, and most people don't have that money. So here's how we
Yeah.
fix that. So the student you mentioned was the student writing essentially randomly placed misspelled words. Is that basically
Well,
where they were?
well, it was because I was in a youth club, so they were like, she was just, there was some advertisement about the disco or like whatever. Like, it was just like
Sure.
a piece of
Yeah.
A3 piece of paper where there were some words about when and where, and I was just like, why is this? There is something wrong with it. Like it took me a little bit of time, but but and I asked her, and I said, like, it's not for criticize, but like, what is, well, and she said, when she said, well, I'm dyslexic, and it was just like, you should accept it, I'm dyslexic, and that is
So here's how actually to fix it. So starting off, just you know how simple this is. Once we follow the science, I'm going to give you an example of a girl that I use a lot in these cases. Her name is Sarah. I feel permission to tell her this part of her story. Sarah's favorite thing to do in the world is swimming. She's 10 years old at the time. She's reading and writing like a 7 year old, but her writing is essentially randomly placed misspelled words. So I'm going to show you, if you were to tutor her, how to fix this.
okay.
Okay. What you would do is you would go to a laptop computer, not an iPad, not an iPhone, certainly not handwriting, a laptop computer with real keyboard. You're going to type out hero, plus sign. What are we talking about? She's going to copy that. That's fine. Professor James Collins, Strategies for Struggling Writers, Default Writing Strategy of Copying. So now we got Sarah, plus sign. What are we talking about? We're going to swap out hero for Sarah. Sarah, plus sign. What are we talking about? Now we're going to swap out, we're going to have a list of 10 things that she really, really likes and 10 things she really, really hates. So we got Sarah, plus sign. What are we talking about? We're going to swap out what are we talking about for the first thing on that list, which is swimming. She's on the swim team. She jumps in the pool every chance she can get. So we got Sarah, plus sign. What are we talking about? Swap that out for swimming. Sarah, plus sign, swimming. See how we got there? Okay. Now I'm going to try to fool you by asking you two of the simplest questions ever. And if you answer them correctly, this works. If not, it doesn't. And this is where people tend to have an epiphany on dyslexia to really understand it. Are you ready?
Okay, yes.
Okay. So we got Sarah plus sign swimming. We have to swap out the plus sign for a word. Okay. So here's my question. Remember, before we do this, Sarah's favorite thing to do in the world is swimming. She's on the swim team, jumps in the pool every chance she can get. Sarah plus sign swimming. We got to swap out the plus sign. Here's my question: does Sarah like or dislike swimming?
She must like swimming.
Good. That's exactly correct. Now, what's the three-word sentence? You got
Sarah
the first part
likes
correct. What's the
swimming.
second? I'm sorry. What is it?
Likes.
Ah, but that's not what I asked. Do I have
Oh,
you confused?
yes.
Okay. This is what typically happens. Okay, so let's go what happened. I asked does Sarah like or dislike swimming? You said like. That is correct. Now go ahead and create the sentence.
Sarah like swimming.
Right. I'm sorry, say that again.
Sarah like swimming.
Yes, there you go. You got it. What did you do the second time that you didn't do the first time?
I did not say likes. I did not.
Exactly. It's exactly right. Because as an educated person, you automatically corrected and by adding the S. Sarah's dyslexic. She has no clue how to add the S because let's just look at the science again. It's the back part of the brain where that happens, and there's nothing going on.
Oh
Okay.
my.
So we
Yes.
have to drag that forward to the front part where she has double 2.5 times the neural activity so we can train her how to add the S.
So is this but how she's 10 years old and how
She's
does
10,
she
yes.
and how, if you do this, you said 10 positives, 10 negatives. Uh well, you said dislikes, so I
But
could
right,
have.
you got a little ahead of us. So let me explain first. So
Okay.
what we have to do is draw this forward. The front part of the brain deals with word analysis. Let's take care of that first. So
Yeah.
what we did is we have Sarah like swimming. We got to show her how to add the S. If
Yes.
you got an extra 300, $400,000, you can send them to the Windward School where they would show them how to use seeing, touching, hearing, all these senses to try to do this. Take you 2 years and $11,000 to figure out how to be trained properly. I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. What we do is we ask Sarah, do you like or dislike swimming? She said like, so we got Sarah like swimming. I would say, Sarah, read what you wrote out loud. Does it sound generally correct? She's going to say no. And I'm going to say, Sarah, fix it. Sarah likes swimming. Okay. Do you see how like and dislike is a very simple form of word analysis?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we have to do articulation. Then we add because reason one. Do you see how the reasons are a very simple form of articulation? Okay. Give me a simple reason of why a 10-year-old girl would like to swim.
Freedom.
Freedom. Sarah likes swimming because it's freedom. Now, do you see how we have a whole mess of misspelled words here?
Yes.
Here's how we fix it. We tell Sarah to drop a period and then to read out loud, and does the sentence sound generally correct? If not, fix it. That gets rid of the horrendously bad grammar mistakes, for the really bad ones. The teachers have a hard time with bad ones. They are very good at simple to intermediate ones. So we just made their life a lot easier. Number two, we tell Sarah to go ahead and to keep, to go ahead and to as she's typing this out, if she makes a mistake, she has to retype everything, and she's going to retype that between 3 and 13 times normally. Around 9 times, you're going to start seeing sweat coming down her forehead. Sometimes she's concentrating so hard. Each time she's going to say, "I'm not going to make that mistake," and she keeps making it until she doesn't. Each time she concentrates harder and harder, and that's where the magic happens. That's where we're moving things from back here to up here and making it work. So we do that with 10 for 10 reason ones for 10 likes and then 10 dislikes for 20 sentences. Then reason one and reason two, 10 likes and 10 dislikes. Keep going until every sentence is spelled correctly. Reason one, reason two, and reason three. Okay. What we have done is we've now increased her writing to the end of second, beginning third grade level. Think an advanced 7-year-old, beginning 8-year-old. All right. Also, if she can write a word, she can read it. If she can write it, she can read it. So the reading increases. So I just showed you how to do a major improvement. No more randomly placed misspelled words for sentences. We just fixed that, and I explained that to you in about 15 minutes.
But how long does this take? Because if I was a 10-year-old, I would like.
Mhm.
Is it an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours or 10
Oh,
minutes? Or
to go through all that. Remember, the Windward School has kids for 4 to 5 years at 4 to
yes,
1, 5
yeah.
to 1 student to teacher ratio. Okay, we're doing this in a fraction of the time. I'll get to how long it takes in a minute. I need to explain the rest of the model. That's
Okay,
word
sorry.
analysis followed by articulation. But what I noticed when I started doing this is I couldn't get these kids to do anything, nothing. Then I realized back when I was in law school, I did really well in it because it was my speciality, what I really cared about. I checked out with some other senior professors and I found the same thing. They did not do well against their eventual peers, school through college. But once they reached grad school, they were top of their class day one or soon thereafter because it was in their speciality. So to show you how important this is why this is the first part of my model. The student I'm about to tell you about, I never saw this before. I will never see this again. It's a one-off exception. Her name is Casey. I met her when she was 10 years old. Almost at the end of a school year, she turned 11 over the summer. She was reading and writing as if she was 7. So she was interested in Theodore Roosevelt. So I assigned her this little book, The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt, all 900 pages. This won the Pulitzer. This was for
Uh-huh.
15-year-olds to 18-year-olds, depending on who you ask. So I told Casey, she wanted to do reading first. I normally do writing, but I said, okay, here's how you do it. Do 10 to 20-minute sessions. Talk to your mom, see how often. I didn't know Casey. She locked herself in her room essentially for 3 hours a night for 6 months, most of the days in the summertime. At the end of that, she knew every word in that book. She increased her reading level 8 grade levels in 6 months. I worked with her for 15 minutes a week. This was all Casey. At the end of that, her mom asked, what about, is this just for this book or does it transfer over? So then I assigned her this book, my most popular, Walt Disney, The Triumph of the American Imagination, all 1,000 pages. If you go to Disneyland or Disney World or Euro Disney, you walk in, people say they feel the Disney magic. It's 2 universal themes. The first one's easy to find. The second one typically takes my kids a year or 2 to find, but then they're reading like 17-year-olds. Casey did it in 3 months. Why am I spending so much time on this? Because Casey's the most motivated kid I ever worked with. So I asked her when we went from a book you liked to one you hated. She hated Disney's book. How much did your motivation drop? She said she dropped about 50%. So think about that. Going outside her speciality, she's down 50% motivation wise. Typical kids are down 75 to 90%. So what I want you to think about is, do you remember your days in school? You in like language class, you went through this book and that book. You did like 5 or 10 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Dyslexics want to work on one book during the intervention period, not all of those. So that's problem number one. You have to focus during the intervention period on their speciality. Okay. Number two, if you ask a dyslexic in their speciality, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization? They're going to say yes. So what we have to do is to force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. Let me say that again. We have to force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. So what we do is we can't do the traditional teaching method, which starts off really big and then eventually goes into detail. It's like asking a dyslexic to grab fog. Nothing there. So, for example, if you ask a dyslexic this question, what effect did Martin Luther King's famous I Have a Dream speech have on the American Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s? Normal kids know exactly what to do. Dyslexics, grabbing fog, no idea. We have to ask a specific to a general question. What personally compelled Martin Luther King to want to give his famous speech? We find the answer. That answer gives us a question, which gives us an answer, which gives us a question, which gives us an answer. This forces the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. And so what we do is we go in the kid's speciality, we focus on the specific to the general, and we do word analysis followed by articulation. That's the model. Now, how effective is it? I could never tell anybody because my clients don't want to share their information. In December of 2024, a little over a year ago, I met a Kimberly, who's a homeschooling mom, very religious, and she said I can use her son and her working with her son Reed. Reed was in fifth grade, 10 years old. Kimberly had some college. She taught Reed's three brothers and sisters how to read properly using traditional methods. They weren't dyslexic. So just before I met them, Kimberly spent $700 to have the state of Ohio test her son and her kids. Reed was reading at the 11th percentile, writing at the 4th percentile. We picked his speciality, which was Wolverine from the X-Men. They used graphical novels, which she approved. And she worked with him for an hour and a half a week for 5.5 months. I'm not going to give you the data for his end of year testing because it was done in her house. That summer, Reed's friends wanted him to come to public school to be with them socially. So they start school early. They did it in August. So that August, about 8 months after I started working with him, they tested Reed. His reading went from the 11th percentile to the 64th. His writing went from the 4th percentile to the 65th. He's now in normal classes, not special ed, with his friends, getting A's and B's. If that was January, they would have put him in special ed away from his friends. Unhappy kid. Now he's with his friends in normal classes because his mother did what every parent dreams of, and she solved the problem in a little over in 5.5 months. And she taught her son more than 7 times faster than public schools could, doing less than half the time. And she did this faster than the private schools could using this method. It's that powerful.
But like, that is the success stories. But when you meet those kids,
Mm-hmm.
how are they devastated? Like, have they? Because when you say they would be in a special ed school or a class, and that is also like they there is something with kids, and they don't perceive them as dumb or stupid or whatever. But when they, because we focus so much on reading and writing, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just like in the school system here in Iceland, like you have, like there is always, they are always downgrading the where you have to build something or knit something or whatever, but you have to read Icelandic and you have to do the math, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just like and the sense of, if you don't know how to do that, then they walk around and tell themselves, I'm stupid.
Yes. So you tend to get two reactions. One, the kids become so extraordinarily motivated they will walk through brick walls. Okay. Or they tend to become very shattered as a person, just wiped out. So I have to deal with both extremes. For the motivated kids, I pick out a book like this, I get them started, and we go until it's finished. Okay. I teach them literally the craft of research. I teach them. So they are reading and writing at a much more advanced level when I finish with them than the advanced placement kids that are going on to the Ivy League. Dyslexia is not a reading issue. It's just a symptom of how it's presented. Then the kids that are completely shattered, I have to find out something that they're really interested in and show them that they're not dumb in that specialty. They're really, really good. And then what I tell them, listen, talk to any adult that's in a profession, and all their boss cares about is how good they are. If you're going to be an electrician, your boss doesn't care if you can do Shakespeare. They want to know, are you a good electrician? If you're going to be a lawyer, they only care how good you are as a lawyer, not if you can diagram Shakespeare or do calculus. They just don't care. And then I have to pull the kid back and say, okay, we're going to show you how to be really good in your specialty. And in the future, that's all your professors are going to care about. That's all your employers are going to care about. They don't care about this gen ed stuff. And that's what I have to do to get them to pull them back.
But how is it? Are there any numbers? Like, are there more boys dyslexic, or is it
No,
equal? Or do
it's
you have any? Do you have
it's
any
generally
numbers?
about equal. It's perceived that boys are more dyslexic because when you're forcing a boy to do things when they're 5 to 10, and they can't, they act out. They become disruptive. Girls tend to just take it and smile and be polite. So they perceive that girls don't have this. There's a lot of times I don't get kids until like one of my clients, she was 15 and they found out she was dyslexic. And she was just, they're like, it's too late. It's going to take the private schools. There's not enough time left. And I was like, yeah, we can fix that. So I did my original course with her. It took longer because she was only 15. Remember, I'm giving her prompts
Mm-hmm.
designed for, college grads or almost college grads. And when we were done, she scored in the average range, about the 50th percentile. She went on to college and she did just fine. I didn't need 4 years to correct that. I needed about 8 months.
That is why I want to bring up the topic for our talk, like why multisensory learning works and why
Mhm.
schools are still slow to use it. Is it because no, I don't know, like why don't schools use it? Why
Because
isn't this not like used everywhere?
because the traditional multisensory approach is what they're welded to. Just so everybody knows, I'm a reviewer for the International Dyslexia Association annual conference, biggest academic conference in dyslexia in North America each year. So where they are in refining things, Dr. Orton is the Einstein, the Copernicus, the everything in my field. He passed away in 1948. His partner Gillingham passed away sometime in the 50s. It hasn't changed a lot how they perceive it. Their changes to this system are now down at like the vein of a leaf. Okay. Why isn't it used? Because in the States, our public school teachers, especially in the suburban area, especially in my state, which spends more on we spend $32,000 a year per kid on average. Special ed, add another 20 grand to that. So about 52 for dyslexic kids. And the results are horrible. Our public school teachers are well paid union workers. The private schools get paid horrible and they can't afford it because it's 4 to 1 to 5 to 1, and the tuition's already $75,000 a year. Why isn't it used? Because the traditional forms are so outrageously expensive. This is the modern form of it. That's the modern science. We now know what dyslexia is. Why is it not being used? Because my field is trying to increase the neural activity back here to try to look like this instead of focusing on the front part of the brain where we have 2.5 times the neural activity. So it's kind of like imagine taking the 98-pound weakling, the kid who weighs 40 kilograms, and compare them to a guy who weighs 100 kilograms, and you're going to take this skinny kid and try to turn him into a bodybuilder. It's not happening. Our bodies were not designed to do this. Our brains were not designed to do this. Instead, I looked at the front part of the brain that is 2.5 times overactive, and imagine taking one of your national football teams and having them go up against a bunch of 12-year-old kids. All right. There's a huge advantage. So literally, I'm the only one that saw take things that don't work back here and move it up here. And last year I did 157 podcasts to get the word out. I present everywhere I can. Remember, I just had a mom without an educational degree solve her kids' issues in 5.5 months, where a private school would need years to do that. Okay? Just trying to spread as much as I can, and it's inexpensive. When I did this for New York State, again, this was 20 years ago, we solved the problem for less than $900 a kid. The private solution was more than 100 times the cost for a third to half the effectiveness.
But okay, I have two questions now. One, why is it increasing or increasing the numbers of dyslexia in kids, or like what is happening?
It's been constant. In reality, we're just getting better at finding it.
Okay.
Dyslexia really represents about the worst 5 to 10% of reading and writing. It is absolutely not a scientific term. The neurodiverse, if you were at ADD and ADHD, attention deficit disorder, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, you combine all that, you're at about 15, 20%. Okay. And just so you know, the schools are not trying to be hard on neurodiverse kids. What's happening is I want you to think back to your education. If you did two things,
Yeah.
if you set up your study schedule properly, and you worked really hard, you did really well to freaking awesome in school. If you didn't do those two things, you did bad. Make sense? All
Yeah.
you had to do was set up your schedule properly and then study hard. That works for 80+% of the population. But again, let's go back to the science. For school, typically that's where your neural activity. We got nothing going on, so our brains are exactly the opposite. Our brains don't come into themselves until grad school because it's hyper specific in what our speciality is. So for us, it's unfair to get through it's very hard to get there. But once we're in grad school, we own the place from day one or soon thereafter. That book that I created with Professor Holmes, here's his background.
Yeah.
Dr. Holmes, he's in his advanced 80s now. In the 1950s, okay, he didn't learn to start to read until 5th grade. He was in 9th, 10th grade, almost flunking out of school. There was zero chance of him going on to college. Then he entered as a junior into a science competition for the state of Indiana. It meant something back then. He won the state of Indiana. He got 3rd place in the country. All of a sudden, he's the star student of his school, getting straight A's. They let him into college. He started off with 7 majors, ended up with 3. His president of his university arranged for him to speak with the second leading economist of the 20th century, where he got the very best scholarship, the best economics program the world had. Got his PhD. He stopped counting, rewriting his dissertation after 100, became one of the world's top 1% of lecturing economists. And what he always did to publish is he would have a co-writer. He would do the research, the idea, and the other person would write it up or maybe help with the research, but it was his idea, and they became co-authors because he needed the writer. The other professor thought they were lucky as heck because they had his brilliant ideas. Okay, and what you find in this book, the central thing is when you want to go on to a grad program. In undergrad, it's run by the admissions office. But in grad school, besides medical, besides law, and besides business, which are professional schools, they're run by the admissions office, the senior professors decide who comes into the other graduate programs. So what he says is you need to form a relationship with that professor. That craft of research book that I told you about,
Huh?
that's what I show students how to do. So once they can come up with something original to say, something that's worth saying, I show them how they can take that and go and try to get it published. Once a kid is published, they have access to getting into grad school, or if they have the ability but just haven't quite gotten there, but they understand the process. What he's essentially saying is to really know a professor, you want to have that relationship where they're not just going to write you a letter of recommendation, they're going to make a phone call. So let me give you an example. I worked with Professor George Barnett, who is the chair of the communications department at SUNY Center at Buffalo. I was literally outside when he was calling a professor at one of the top universities in America about one of his kids he wanted in the doctoral program and to be accepted. And he kept saying, I'm telling you, she's the best I've had in a long time. She deserves this. I'm telling, because he was putting his reputation on the line.
Yeah.
She got the appointment and she got the funding. So it's not just getting a letter of recommendation, it's really working with one professor. So when you decide what university to go to, it's really more important about the professor you want to work with than anything else. And people do that for grad school all the time. They rarely do that for undergrad.
Yeah. I just want to mention that the book, you can get it as a ebook on Dick's on your
No,
website, Dyslexia
that's
Classes.com.
that's one of the ebooks that I hand out for people that are interested.
Yeah.
It's sitting on my hard drive. We send them out when it's requested. That was where I went to speak to Dr. Holmes, and I interviewed him, taped the interview, and turned it into the ebook. Unfortunately, he's in his later 80s now, and his mental capacity is nowhere near what it used to be.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm glad I did this when I did. We did
Yeah.
this in 2019. And it's just kind of an example of when I created all of this, it was because how many Dr. Holmes do we have out there? He was literally about not to be able to go to college. And then if it wasn't for that not getting third place in the National Science Foundation, it wouldn't have happened. For me, I wouldn't be here today if I didn't get second place in my university's wide competition where they gave me 15,000. That's what funded my initial couple of students before I got New York State to put in their money.
But what I hear you say is that because he won his Louisiana,
In
was
the
it
state of Indiana, yes, and
Indiana?
then third
Sorry, and
place,
then yeah,
third
but
place nationally.
then people perceive him as a clever. Like, what
Oh,
is that? What it
genius!
takes? Like, yes, he's a genius, but before he got the accolades,
They thought he
like,
was an idiot.
yes, and that is why I'm telling you, we, the normal ones in brackets, like we who
Hmm.
consider ourselves normal, like we think that you can't, like, or you could, like, I hope that people have discovered that that is not the case, because you can be as you say, a genius with capital letters, because you never know where the next invention comes from. And then it doesn't matter if you're dyslexic, or it doesn't matter if you have ADHD. It doesn't matter what's wrong with you. It's just like, why judge people? And that is what is happening now. We are always
Oh yeah,
judging people.
but it's unfair for people like me to people like you once we hit grad school. For example, when I after I worked with Dr. Holichka, we got that report. I had to connect it with current research. So I was referred to Professor James Collins. He wrote a book called Strategies for Struggling Writers
Huh?
at $1.5 million grant from the U.S. Education Department. Brilliant stuff. I had to connect my ideas to his. People said I would be lucky to get it done in years because he's really tough. I didn't have years. That university wide competition, I don't know, it was like 3 or 4 weeks after I was assigned to him, I had to submit the application. I had to get his approval. I got it in less than 2 weeks. Everybody else takes years. I did in less than 2 weeks. That's the advantage of dyslexics in grad school.
Yeah. Okay, tell me
It's
now.
unfair.
Yeah, but you have to tell me now because time flies when you're having fun. We have five
Hmm.
minutes left. It's just
Hmm.
this is fascinating stuff. How is there a difference? No, this will be a multi question. Like I have so many things I have to ask you. How is the difference between the U.S. and other, like in Europe? Is there a big difference between U.S. like the
Oh yeah.
associations,
So
or
just the market I know the most about is the UK. In the UK, I'm just going to take Oxford for example because it's one of the top
yeah?
institutions in the world. they they have discussions, much smaller classes. They care much more about what the student's studying than trying to make them well-rounded before they can specialize. In the United States, we're stupid. We have to be well-rounded for the first 2 years, and then we go into our major and we focus in the last 2 years. In Europe, you tend to focus on what you want to do. Like for example, in medicine, in the UK, they end up out of high school. They go and study for 2 years, and they go to med school. In the United States, it's ridiculous. We go to 4 years of undergrad, then 4 years of medical school, then 3 to 7 or 8 years for a residency, and then a couple of fellowships. The darn doctors are 35 plus sometimes before they're real doctors. It's stupid. All right. So what you guys do there is you just focus, you get into higher education. This is about what you're being trained in, not if you're going into English, not if you can do calculus or some advanced math, because honestly, who cares? I was really good at math until I hit calculus, and all I have ever used this so-called advanced, middle high school math is to show other students how to do it. I never use it myself.
Yeah.
It's just not every, they want everybody to be science, technology, engineering, math, and only a very small percentage of the population has the brain for that. I flunked Calc 1 and Calc 2 7 times because my uncle graduated top of his class from Clarkson University, and from 65 to 95, he did all the cool stuff in the space program. I wanted to be him. I just didn't have the brains for it.
But okay, and then when you meet people, the clever people who have opinions about dyslexia but
Mhm.
don't have dyslexia, like how are you perceived, and how is your model perceived outside of New York State? Because it sounds like you have been approved in New York State.
Well, when I tell them I was funded by the New York State Senate and what the results were, and I presented it at the New York City branch of the International Dyslexia Association, and I've been training New York City, that's our biggest city by far, and the surrounding areas, the special ed teachers for the past 11 years, every year, yeah, that tends to get their impression. Now, when I tell them I've done 157 podcasts last year, and I'm probably going to do another 200 this year, that also tends to get their impression because they Google me and they see what, I'm explaining how simple it is and how parents can do this, not specialists. Yeah, it tends to get their attention. It tends to get the frustration because this should be in the schools because it's vastly more effective at a fraction of the price. Remember, in New York State, we're spending like 52 grand a year per kid, and we're getting them to pass our English language arts exam at about 10%.
Yeah, but that shows that you don't have to have, like, you can do it with, I don't know, your system sometimes. Your school system is the weirdest stuff that
Oh,
you have to
I just
pay.
tell the parents just do it themselves. By the
Yeah,
time they argue with the school, by the time they sue them in federal court, by the time they do all that, even if they win, what are they going to win? Sending their kids to a $75,000 school, which probably means they're going to have to be. Most people don't live around in one of these schools. They're rare. They have to
yeah.
send them to boarding school. Who wants to send their 11-year-old kid off to boarding school?
Well, time flies when you're having fun, Russell. Hour is
Mhm.
gone, and but I will tell you this: this has been a fascinating chat, and I hope you liked it. But people can find you on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
Yep. The easiest thing to do is just go to my website, dyslexiaclasses.com. It's with
And
that
that
and
was
S
the,
plural, dyslexiaclasses.com. There's a
yeah,
button there that says download free guide. Click on that, answer 3 questions. You get a guide on how to help your dyslexic child. Most important thing is to set up a time to speak with me directly. It's a half an hour, no cost, and I can help your kid find out what the speciality is.
brilliant. And it can be transformed to any language. Doesn't have to be only
Hmm.
English. Like you just have to use your brain a little.
Yes.
So dyslexiaclasses.com.
Yes.
And
And where we finish up and we train parents to do this, we train parents to literally show their kids how to do graduate level research and writing skills before they go to college.
brilliant. And you give them hope, and you give them
Oh,
like,
we go way beyond hope.
yeah,
We train 11 and 12-year-olds to write body paragraphs more evolved than college students.
yeah. One last thing, Casey.
Hmm.
Is she a professor now, or like how old is? Do you remember?
She's in college now. The last I heard from her, she was getting her first big girl job, whatever that is. It's probably something in agriculture. She was ready for college at age 13. She was, yeah, she was. That's when I stopped working with her. I've kept in touch with her occasionally, but she was just dominating high school. Did extraordinarily well in college. Dyslexics, in fact, can read better than educated gen ed people most of the time once they're properly trained. It's not a reading
Woo,
disorder; it's an organizational issue.
woo! Like it's just like I think also Casey, she's a competitive lady.
Oh, she was a very quiet kid, but the motivation, as I said, I will never see that again. I just will never see that again. But when people tell me you can't learn to read, if you can read this, you
Uh-huh.
can go to college. And she did this essentially on her own in 6 months.
Just
Can't be
looking at
done.
that
Hogwash.
book, and it is probably with font size 9 or something. I would definitely just not. Yeah, I would not read it. No pictures or anything.
No, this is 900 pages, and this is one of 3 books in the
Yes.
series.
Oh my.
All right.
Thank you.
So
But
so
but
so so just think of it. If you go to a bookstore, the top books are for like 10 year are like for 15 or 16-year-olds. That's what your reading level has to be, and that's what I do with my kids.
yeah. But Russell, we have to finish somewhere. But like before, I thank you. I can't thank you enough. The next inspiring conversation is in a week's time on
Hmm.
January 15th, and that is with Mark L. Vincent, and we are going to talk about when leadership stops being about the role and starts being about you, because we tend to forget our role in this all. But thank you for being inspiring. Thank you, Russell, for being who you are and for your like fire in your belly and whatnot. And
Hmm.
just, I'm so happy that we met.
Yes, thank you. This is one of the more interesting podcasts I was on.
So maybe I should get myself a hat. I will like consider that so I can like. But my hair is so thick and beautiful. But thank thank you very much. And to the listeners, just be curious, be interested, be inspired, and just reach out to people who like anyhow be there for the kids, because everybody deserves a chance, and nobody should go around and think that they're stupid because of some whatever. Just reach out to Russell if you have. I hope people will do that. And thank you from the bottom of my heart, Russell. You are exceptionally, you are just amazing.
Well, thanks for having me.